Hello and welcome to another identity management video. Today we're going to be looking at privileged access management, PAM. It's part of the Microsoft Identity Manager toolset and it's new in MIM 2016, and there's been some enhancements and updates to it in SP1 and some of the latest hotfixes. What MIM tries to do is it tries to minimize the chance that unauthorized users can access your privileged resources. A couple of examples could be a file share with confidential documents in, or a SharePoint site that you only want to allow privileged users to administrate. Or it could even be the sync service. You only want privileged users to be able to access that and access the server to do activities on that box. So we're going to look at two examples. We're going to look at the file share, and we're going to look at logging onto the sync service box and running a step as a user. So let's go to our environment, and the first thing we'll do is we will try and go to that file share, and you can see there we're getting access denied. We'll try and log on to the sync server using our dev-embassy, our corporate account. And we're getting a connection was denied because the user's not authorized. And we'll quickly do that with the privileged account as well. Again, we're getting access denied. And if we have a look in the corporate domain, in the dev-embassy domain, we can see that we've got a security group for generic admins, and the members list is empty, as you'd expect, because we're getting the access denied message. In the IDM box, we've got the FIM sync admin security group, and again in here, that Maisie account doesn't exist. We have got a couple of accounts in here, and these are our break glass accounts. So if there's an emergency and we need to be able to access this resource, these are the accounts that we can use. So how do we get those privileged accesses? Well, currently we don't have any privileged access, but what we're going to do is we're going to log on to a privileged access workstation. So in my environment, it's just another Windows 10 box, but what it would likely to be is a bit more locked down, no internet access, a lot more restricted. So let's open the PAM portal. You can also use PowerShell if you want to, but we're going to use the demo box that is provided by Microsoft. We're going to click on Activate, and it's now displaying a list of roles that we can activate. A user can be in multiple roles, and a role can have multiple security groups in it. There's different sets of permissions and access requirements that and authentication steps you have to go through. So you've got availability window, MFA, and approval. MFA is where it uses the Azure MFA to authenticate who you are. Approval is where it gets somebody else to approve it. Normally or in my opinion, you don't need to really use the approvals. You might want to use them for your enterprise admin role, but for things like file share or logging onto the sync box, the approval process should have been when they were granted access to that role. What you might want to do is use the availability windows and to say during the office hours of 8 till 8, people can log in and they just need to use MFA. But if they're working out of hours, that's when they might need to have an approval step. Or it could be the approval ones are the backup in case there's an issue with MFA. So if somebody's MFA is not working and they can't authenticate that way, there's a second role which has just got an approval step, and that will let them get through. So what we'll do first is we'll activate our generic admins role. And what should hopefully happen is my phone should start to ring and I will authenticate, and it will then let me access that file share. Very quickly, I will just open the command prompt on this privileged box, and we will try and access the files before we do it. Yeah, perfect, we're getting access denied. So we'll close that, we'll click submit. And what should hopefully happen is my phone should start to ring. And what you can hear here now is the...
You shall not pass until you press the hash key. Thank you.
Your sign-in was successfully verified. Goodbye.
Cool. So what you heard there was the custom authentication greeting. So I had a bit of fun with that. The great thing is that it means that you can customize it to your company needs. So rather than it just being a generic message, you can have your company name in. It could have some other information to help the user realize that the call's coming from the company itself and it's not a fake call or a bogus call trying to capture information. So at the start you had my voice, my custom message, and at the end you had the generic message saying that it had been completed. So what we'll try and do now is we'll just refresh the screen, and hopefully we'll see that the generic admins has now been activated, and we can extend the activation or we can deactivate it. But let's just get the command prompt back up, and we'll try and go to that shared location again. And there we go. We can now see that we can browse the contents of this folder, and we can see that we've got a top secret file in there. So let's activate the FIM sync admins. I'll quickly talk about these options. So you can make these optional or compulsory. So justification. So if you've got an approval step in, you might want to put a reason why you're doing it, or you might just want the user to put something in there. They can request longer than the default timeout. And they can specify the requested time they want the resource to be, the role to activate. So we'll hit submit, and this time it should just go through and activate without needing to do anything additionally. And perfect, we can see there it has successfully, this one successfully activated. So a user can be in as many roles as you want. And if we look at the view history, we can see we've got our 2 requests there. So let's go back to the privilege. Well, let's go back to the corporate box, and now we can use our remote desktop. And before we were getting the access denied message, we're now getting the successful login. And it's just taking a bit of time, so it's logging on for the first time. And while we're waiting for that to log in, let's just go back and look at the corporate domain. So this is the corporate domain, FimSync admins, members, and we can see that the Maisie account has not been added to this members list. I'll just refresh that just to make sure. Yep, she's not in there. And if we go back to the generic admins and members, she's not in there either. If we go to the privileged domain and we select Macy's privileged account and then go to member of, we can see that she's a member of a couple of groups in here. And I don't know if I can stretch this out. It doesn't look like I can. But we can see that these are shadow SID history groups. So when we look in the portal, in Active Directory using computers, you can't actually see those groups, but we can see that when we look in the members tab that she's in there. So let's go back to our box. So we've now logged onto the sync server app 004, and let's start the synchronization service, or the synchronization service app. So we can now log onto it. We can go to our management agents, and we can run the FIM service. So that's giving the user privileged access. What I want to very quickly touch on now is how do you add users, groups and roles into the privileged domain. Because the concept with PAM, MIM PAM, is that you have your corporate domain and a new bastion domain. So the bastion domain that gets created doesn't have any users or groups in to start off with. So if we go to the PAM box and we'll open up our PowerShell ISE, and there's a couple of commands. So the first one is the new PAM user. It's really simple. You just specify the source domain and the source account name, and that will get the account created in the privileged domain. You do need to set the password on the user and enable them. New groups, again, very simple. You run the new PAM group command and you specify the group name, the source domain, the source DC, and the credentials to access that domain. And finally, roles, a very simple one. We're just creating a brand new role called Corp Admins with the privileges for that group and the candidate that we just created there. And again, these roles can have multiple users and multiple candidates and multiple privileges, and you can also specify all the additional parameters that you want to here. So you've got the approvers, available from, available to, MFA enabled, approval enabled, availability window enabled, and description. So you've got all those additional options you can do. The very last thing before I complete this video that I want to show you is the Azure MFA reporting. So all those MFA authentications get logged in the Azure MFA server activity report. And if I refresh it, hopefully we'll see one appear at the very bottom for our new user. There we go. So Macy has now appeared, and we can see its success. We can see the time and when that happened. So that was a really quick demo of PAM. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Any questions or comments, please leave in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed it, hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again soon.